For those Slim Jim.
You're watching Game Bird Classic. One more thing. Don't forget to hit that like button and smash that subscription button so you guys can be notified when I upload brand new videos. Take it away.
Attention, Gamebird. The system has been breached. There's a virus in the network. Cannot contain. Error.
Knock, knock, birdie, it's me.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Game Bird Classic. We've got a wild episode for you guys today. We've got a huge fan of the show. I think he's a big fan. I don't know. He might not be a fan. We've got the Angry Vigilante here today to have a little discussion. We're going to be talking Switch 2. We're going to be talking some Mario Kart, and I think it's going to be an interesting one. Should I call you Vigilante? Is that
Yeah.
the best? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
it'll be much easier.
Hell yeah. Vigilante, let's, this is, I don't normally do videos like this. This isn't really going to be a debate. It's going to be more of a discussion, and I know we're probably going to disagree on some things and agree on some things, but why don't you let the audience know who you are, what your channel is, the kind of content you make, so if they enjoy you in this video, they can go check you out on your channel.
All right. Well, I am the Angry Vigilante, and I generally do what's called salt content, which essentially is I just react. I love reacting to stuff. I actually believe I'm really good at reacting to people's videos, and I just, I like to be entertaining, but what I specifically like to do is react to what I consider a fanboy. That is either pretty much is defending anti-consumer practices. That is what my channel is generally about.
Hell yeah. Cool deal. And for those of you guys who are just tuning into my channel, anyone from Vigilante's channel who's checking this video out, I'm Game Bird Classic. 95% of my content is Nintendo related. I don't really do much news stuff here. I do predictions, speculation, I give thoughts on stuff. But just to introduce kind of who I am, I'm a gamer. I love Nintendo, Sony, and Xbox. I don't really discriminate against any of the consoles. Not a big PC gamer, personally. I used to like it more, but I work on a computer 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So when it's kind of my time to unwind and game, there's nothing wrong with PC gaming. I just prefer to be on the couch, leaning back, with a cold one in one hand, controller in the other. But yeah. So if you guys are interested in Nintendo content and sometimes some weird skits, definitely stay tuned because I'll have more of that coming soon. But with that out of the way, let's dig into it, man. You're of the belief that Switch 2 is actually the Switch Pro and not Nintendo's next true console. Is that correct, or what's your argument?
Yes, that is correct. Now, physically, yes, it is the Switch 2. Nintendo's come out and say it. I'm not arguing that point.
Sure.
What I'm saying why it feels like a Switch Pro. Yes, because when my, unfortunately, my cousin did go out and pre-order the Switch 2, even though I told her not to. She should wait, but she chose not to listen to me.
Did that pain you? I gotta know.
A little bit, but I got to experience watching her unbox it. Yeah, she was very excited, and even I was excited because yes, it looks phenomenally better. It does feel better. Now, come to find out, we all know what's going on with the controllers now. Pretty much the same things. That's unfortunate, but after you boot it up, the UI is almost exactly the same. The startup screen exactly the same. Whenever I see a new gen console, I expect a different startup screen, and every, and pretty much every console I have ever seen, I have never seen them use the same startup screen. So that just threw me off completely. And then once we dove into Mario Kart World, I completely forgot that we were even playing on a next gen console. It just literally felt like we were playing on a Switch Pro when it came down to it. Yes, it does look different. And it is a little bigger, but if you sit there and remove the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2 off of there and you hand them both of those, I don't think they would be able to tell the difference that one is next gen and one is not.
Okay. So you're not denying that it's the Switch 2. You're more or less saying that it feels more like a Switch Pro. The next gen is whenever the next company says it is. So regardless of the leap in innovation or visuals. And what's interesting is I actually feel like the Switch 2 is the biggest leap in graphics and power since the GameCube. And when I think of the GameCube to the Wii, there is almost no visual difference to me from the GameCube to the Wii. Nintendo innovated, and that was kind of the defining factor. They brought motion controls, which hadn't been done on a mainline console. So that felt next gen in at least the way you play. But then we went from the Wii to the Wii U, and again, yeah, it brought it to HD, but it was the bare minimum HD, and it still kind of just looked like Wii games in HD. But again, they did the hardware innovation. Wii U to Switch. I think Switch looks a little bit better than Wii U. But again, it brought hardware innovation with a console that's both a hybrid and a home console with the Joy-Cons that detach and attach. But I don't feel like from the Wii to the Switch, there was ever between all three of those consoles, there was a big graphical leap. And while we haven't seen that yet from a first-party Nintendo game, Mario Kart, I think it looks better than Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart World, I think looks better than Mario Kart 8. But we do know that that started as a Switch 1 game. We also know that the new Hyrule Warriors game started as a Switch 1 game. And I'd be willing to bet that the new Donkey Kong game probably started as a Switch 1 game. When we see games like Cyberpunk, and I know it's third-party, but generally, third-party games look worse on Nintendo hardware because Nintendo's a little bit better about pushing their hardware to their maximum. I think, dude, let's be honest. I don't think anything could look remotely as good from the third party as Cyberpunk on the Switch 1. I mean, when you look at Hogwarts, it literally looks like there's Vaseline smeared all over the screen when you play. It looks like crap. So I do think that this has been the biggest jump graphically in 3 generations. Obviously, it's not as powerful as the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, but it to me it feels like the biggest jump Nintendo's done in a long time. Now, innovation, no. And I think a lot of Nintendo fans are used to that. And I was worried about that. My ideal scenario, and I said this in a lot of my older videos from a year and a half, 2 years ago, I really wanted Switch 2 to bring back dual screen, personally, because there's a whole library of games from the DS and the 3DS that I think would be great on the NSO. And they'll never be as good on one screen because there's going to be a compromise. A lot of Nintendo fans want Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, which will always be better, in my opinion, on the Wii U because of the dual screen where you had your inventory and your map there at all times. So I would have liked dual screen tech. I think the Wii U, the technology was ahead of its time in that they weren't ready for that. Like it was a little bit cheap feeling. But today, I feel like they could have done that. So the lack of innovation, I find disappointing. I find the Switch 2 name boring. I debated this before the name was announced. I did not want it called Switch 2. I thought it was boring. And I thought...
I wanted a Super Switch.
Super Switch is great. Obviously, I thought there might be a dual screen. So even like the Switch Duo or the Switch Flip or anything different than Switch 2... I would have been happy with. I'm disappointed that the UI is the same. I wish we would have had themes added. I wish we would have had menu music. I want all those things that, as a Nintendo fan, are that iconic Nintendo charm. So all that stuff is disappointing to me. That's all missing stuff that I feel like should have been there. But if I remember correctly, and people could feel free to let me know, or yourself if I'm wrong on this, if I remember correctly, the Xbox One UI, as well as the Xbox Series S and X UI, are nearly identical with very minimal changes. It's similar to how Switch 1 and Switch 2 are. So it's another example of, I think PlayStation did it well with their UI looking different every time. I think it's really boring that Switch 2 didn't change up the UI, make it more fun. It's minor tweaks, but I believe Xbox did the same as Nintendo, where they kept it almost identical with just a few little tweaks here and there. But do you agree with me that this seems like a bigger leap than the Wii to Wii U or the Wii U to Switch, or do you think it's less or the same? I'm curious because I personally feel like it's the biggest leap we've gotten in a long time.
Okay. Yeah. So I will be perfectly honest with the whole Xbox. I want to get the Xbox part of the way. I've
Sure.
never owned an Xbox, so
Fair
I
enough.
never played Xbox One, never played Xbox Series X. I know when you look at the consoles, they look completely different,
Sure.
but so I don't know about the whole startup screen. Now, when it comes to the Wii and the Wii U, I will firmly admit this one. I've never played the Wii U. I
Got
did
it.
not like the Wii. I was not a huge fan of the Wii with the whole motion controls. I played some games on there. Like when it comes to the Wii, my extent is Wii Sports, which I did. I found fun. Twilight Princess, which I did love. That was probably my favorite game on the Wii. And then I
Sure.
played a Dragon Quest game, Mario Kart Wii, and then I played Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenshi 3. And I remember I enjoyed the Dragon Ball Budokai Tenshi 3 game on the PlayStation more than I did the Wii. So I never went to the Wii U, but I did have a 3DS. And when
Okay.
and so I went from the 3DS to the Switch. And I remember, playing Sun and Moon and then playing Pokemon Let's Go. To me, that was a huge graphical leap. I mean,
Yes.
so I'm
Yes.
going
Yeah.
from I'm going from a handheld, to the Switch, So when I look at the Switch 1 going on to the Switch 2, like I've only played Mario Kart World and then I played a little bit of Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. So
Okay.
when I'm gonna firm believe that probably the people that went out and got the Switch 2 were huge Nintendo fans. So they're primarily gonna probably get it for, the first party games. And in my opinion, I don't think that Nintendo picked the best game to launch with to showcase is supposed to be next gen. Mario Kart World, I do think it looks slightly better than Mario Kart 8, but I don't think it's like a big enough difference. To me, outside of it having 24 players at once, I don't see how the game couldn't really have played on the Switch 1. I understand that it's open world, but to me they dropped the ball with the whole open world aspect. I didn't really care for the open world part.
Sure.
When it came to the P switches, I did find them fun, but there was no real incentive to really do them, in my opinion.
For
So
sure.
when I was just talking about like the knockout mode and the Grand Prix mode, for the most part, I didn't really see why they needed to do 24 players on top of it, because most of the time I was in like the top 3 or top 5, except in the very beginning of the race, so I didn't even really see most of them. So while I was playing Mario Kart World, it just didn't feel next gen to me while I was playing it, and that was probably the reason why I keep saying it felt more like a Switch Pro than it did a Switch 2, in my opinion.
If you're going from the 3DS to the Switch, yes, I totally agree. That's gonna feel like a huge generational leap.
Yeah.
Totally. But I don't necessarily think it's a fair comparison.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Like I understand that, like you want to that you would think that is a fair comparison to the Wii U, and I understand because they did merge them, but the Wii U only sold, I think, like less than 15 million. The 3DS
Yeah, it was like
sold,
around 13.
80. Yeah, the 3DS sold like 80 something million. So I think most of the people that probably bought the Switch were more of the 3DS people than the Wii U. So I think, and that's why I feel like like the Switch 2 didn't really feel like that. And I've been noticing a lot of people, some people say yes, it is a Switch 2, and I've been noticing a lot of Nintendo people saying that it's that it feels more like a Switch Pro. And I think that's where it comes in, where a lot of us that are saying it's more of a Switch Pro, we went from the 3DS to the Switch. We didn't really go from the Wii U to the Switch.
I mean, if listen, if that's the point of comparison, then yes, you're gonna feel that way.
Yeah.
But I personally, I just don't feel like it's a fair comparison, because even though the Wii U was a failure, that was the previous mainline console. So regardless of its success, regardless that whether or not most people came from the 3DS, the Wii U was a failure, but that was at the time their mainline console. The other thing that I want to mention too is that You know, I feel like first year for every new console is always kind of rough
Yeah.
on the visual side. Even PS5, and I know you've talked about you felt like you saw a big generational jump with the PS5 on your videos. I
Yeah.
personally didn't. I think the Demon Souls remake that launched with PS5 looked stunning. But to be honest with you, man, I mean, I think the PS5 puts out beautiful games. I didn't feel the leap from PS4 to PS5 that I felt from PS3 to PS4. And on top of that, the one of my favorite games of the last 10 years is actually a PlayStation game, Ghost of Tsushima. I think
Yeah.
that game, it was a final year PlayStation 4 game. I think that game looked just as good as anything. Obviously, art style and art direction is a huge part of that, but I feel like that game looked just as good as almost anything that came out in year one of PS5. That might just be a personal preference, but I think that the more time developers spend with the console, the games just look better and better as the generation goes. Again, I think I agree with you that I don't think, as far as like showcasing your new technology and the new visuals, I don't think that Mario Kart is like, the standard. Definitely
Yeah.
don't think that. And I think they probably could have gotten rid of the world mechanic and probably put more visual flair and more visual polish into it to make it stand out and just pop visually. I do think the game looks great. I don't think there's anything wrong with it visually. I do like the more colorful approach. I know some people like the look of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe better, but I kind of like this a little bit more. It's slightly more cartoony. And I like that. I like the vibrant colors. I like how animated the characters are in this one. And I think in 10 years, this game is going to age nicely. It's never going to be a showstopper, but I think it's going to
No.
age nicely, personally. But
Okay.
what about... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to say something like I will agree with you that when it came to the PS3, the PS4, the graphical leap was way bigger than when the PS4 to the PS5. Now,
Yeah.
I've never played Demon Souls. I am not a Souls player. I am terrible at Souls games. But
No worries.
but there was one like timed exclusive for PlayStation, and that was Godfall, which was a
Oh, yeah.
terrible game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you visually looked at it, it was beautiful. The world was stunning, and that game to me, it didn't feel like it could be played on the PS4. It didn't. So like I'm going from that point. Now, when it comes to Mario Kart World, I completely agree with probably wasn't the best, to try to showcase what the Switch 2 can do. I think Donkey Kong Bonanza should have been that. And at first, I was a little excited for Donkey Kong Bonanza, but I wasn't overly thrilled about it at first.
Sure.
And then when they did the direct, to me, that's the way Nintendo should do a direct. Was the
Yeah.
way they handled Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Yeah, the
I
direct
think
was
they
great.
should have. Yeah, because one thing that the Switch 2 launch lineup was missing was a first-party single-player game. I understand that there were good third-party single-player games, but if I'm going to get a Switch 2, it's mainly going to be for the first-party titles.
Sure.
Because I have a PS5, I have a gaming laptop where I can play those third-party games. So like, why would I go buy another console just to play a third-party game? To me, that's just going to be a waste of money. So I do enjoy the first-party titles. I think they should have launched with Donkey Kong Bonanza and Mario Kart World. I know that would have been tough for some people, but you would have had a great multiplayer game, and then you would have had an amazing first player game also on top of it. And to me, Donkey Kong Bonanza looks stunningly beautiful. I don't see how that game could have ran on the Switch 1. I really don't.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, listen, man, I agree with you. And this is just preference. I love Mario Kart. I love Smash Brothers. But
Yeah.
the majority of games that I play are single player experiences. I'm not a competitive online player. There are exceptions to that. Smash and Mario Kart are definitely exceptions. And there's other exceptions too. But I prefer to play games on my own and
Me too.
kind of just immerse myself. So yes, like if I could pick my perfect launch title, I would want something like this new Donkey Kong game, or the next mainline Zelda, or the next big 3D Mario, or maybe the next big JRPG game. to just get lost in, and then get Mario Kart over the holiday, when, you have family and friends over and stuff like that. So I agree with you there. I'm not going to deny that. I've had a blast with Mario Kart. I've got a family, I've got kids and stuff. And my wife, she doesn't play video games. It's been fun to see her laughing and smiling and playing that. But I know that's not everyone. So to each their own. Now, I want to get more into Mario Kart soon, but I want to talk a little bit more about hardware first.
Okay.
As far as like the form factor, the new Joy-Cons, the new Pro Controller, the new dock, are you disappointed in all of that stuff? Does that stuff
the only
really
thing
feel... Go ahead.
I don't overly know huge about hardware like spec wise,
Sure.
but when I looked at the dock with my cousins, it looked good. I liked it. I didn't really like the back part. I think most people would probably say they didn't enjoy the back piece. At first I did like how the controllers felt, and then I got disappointed. Come to find out when they took them apart, it's essentially the same thing as the Switch 1. I've been hearing rumors. I haven't really looked into them enough, but I've been hearing that people are already getting stick drift, which, I mean, if they're already getting stick drift, if some people are getting stick drift, then they must be some faulty controllers then. 'Cause that's too soon.
We're gonna jump into that, but real quick, we're actually gonna hear a word from our sponsor.
All right.
Do you struggle with unexpected movements? Shut up! You may be suffering from stick drift. But now there's Stick Fix, the revolutionary solution to put you back in control.
Delicious.
Stick Fix! With Stick Fix, you can say goodbye to awkward in-game movements. Stick Fix! Frustrating losses and questioning your life choices after yet another controller purchase.
Side effects of Stick Fix may include overconfidence, extended play sessions, insomnia, and addiction. Please consult your doctor before use.
Stick Fix!
Ask your local gaming store about Stick Fix or call Nintendo support and hope for the best.
Hello, can I get one order of Stick Fix, please?
Stick Fix!
Thanks, Stick Fix.
Thanks, Stick Fix.
Stick Fix. Drift less. Play more. Stick Fix!
No.
If it's true, I haven't looked into it enough, because I think some might be fake, some might be true. But if you said, the system hasn't even been out that long, and if some people are getting stick drift, then the controllers have to be faulty. I don't see how people are getting stick drift that soon.
Yeah, so this one, I think for me, this is probably the most annoying thing about Switch 2. I know some people don't care about it, but listen, man, like, stick drift was a huge issue, last gen. Hundreds, thousands of Joy-Cons sent back to Nintendo. I just don't get it, to be honest with you, man. I don't get it. It's a pain in the butt for the consumer, obviously. When you buy something, you expect it to work. You expect a quality product, especially when you're paying a premium dollar for it. But at the same time, on the Nintendo side of it, like, you'd think they'd be sick of dealing with it too. Like, that's got to be a pain in the butt for them as well. They obviously offer for you to ship it in, but they are having hundreds, if not thousands, of Joy-Cons shipped to them that they have to work on and then ship back to the customer. Like, I just don't get why they don't fix it. Now, I haven't heard any stories myself about stick drift happening. And I do think you always have to exercise a little bit of caution, because there's always at least some people who will just make crap up. Doesn't matter if it's Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, PC, whatever. There are people who will make stuff up just to make an argument or just to make a point. I personally haven't heard about it. Not saying that that's not true. It very well could be true. It could be an issue already. I just haven't heard about it. That being said, my hope is that it's not true. And while the technology's still the same, I hope that, I think we both can agree the sticks feel a lot smoother and a lot better. They do feel more premium.
Oh, they do.
So my hope is that there's something at least different enough that this isn't going to be an issue, or at the very least, it's more in line with Sony or Xbox, where it happens with those controllers, but definitely not as often as the Joy-Cons, which it's like, I think I had 3 left Joy-Cons just go to crap that I had to toss.
I
didn't bother with sending. I don't have the patience for it.
Oh yeah, like I'm assuming the reason why that they don't just fix it, like their Joy-Cons, they have to be cheaper than like Hall effects. That's what I'm guessing.
Sure.
Because from a business standpoint, it makes no sense to use the same thing, so continue to have to replace them, and instead of just switching them for Hall effects. That's what I'm assuming, but
Sure.
I don't know like what's the best controller out there. But like when I had a Switch one, that's the only ones I've ever experienced stick drift on. I know that you can get stick drift on other controllers, but I've never gotten stick drift on a PS5, PS4, PS3. I've never gotten stick drift on anything but the Switch. And yeah, it was definitely a letdown. Now, I remember you did sit there and ask me about the Pro controller.
Yes.
I never touched the Switch 2 Pro controller. My cousin
Sure.
didn't order one,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a Switch 1 Pro controller, because I used to have a Switch, and then I was an idiot and left it at a hotel, and then when I called later that day, they were like, "Oh, we can't find it." I'm like, "Of course you can't." So,
For sure.
unfortunately,
Well-
so but I do love the Switch 1 Pro controller.
Sure.
But so far, my favorite controller is the PS5 DualSense. I have to say that is my favorite controller.
Yeah, I think the DualSense is fantastic, and I made a video. This was before Switch 2 was announced. I made a video about the Switch 2 Pro controller and the top things that I want from it. We got some of those features, and I'm happy to report. And obviously, this is subjective. Everyone's gonna like what they like. I think the Switch 2 Pro controller is my second favorite controller of all time.
Okay.
I love it. They use a very special type of plastic. I don't know what it's called, but it's like silky smooth. I know it's a weird thing to say. There's something about the feel of the controller that feels just really nice. It feels more premium. The DualSense is a better controller, without a doubt. It's the best controller on the market. DualSense vibrations are extremely immersive. I wanted better HD rumble, which apparently we do have, but I'm yet to play a game that shows it off. So
Yeah.
We'll have to see if or when that happens. But one of the things I wanted was a headphone jack, which is missing from the base Pro controller. So I'm happy that we have that. I really wanted back paddles. I love back paddles. Just defaulting the left back paddle to run so I don't have to press in the right or the left analog stick is it for me is a game changer. So I love that. It's programmable. It has more heft. It feels really premium. That being said, nothing about it has the technology so far that I've experienced. The DualSense, which is amazing vibrations. The haptic triggers when you're
I love those
pulling a
triggers.
bowstring is really neat, really cool. And I don't know, just something about it. The touchpad in the middle, just something about the DualSense is just incredible tech. I will say this, though. There's one thing I absolutely hate about the DualSense controller, and it's the battery life is crap. That is the one thing that I give a major edge to the Switch 2 Pro controller, which I believe is 40 hours or 35 hours. I feel like my DualSense dies within 2 hours, personally.
Yeah.
I
will admit the battery sucks.
My launch DualSense has drift, but it's the only PlayStation controller that's ever gotten drift. I've had 3 Joy-Cons get left Joy-Cons get drift, so I know it's a bigger issue on the Switch for sure. But I have gotten it on one DualSense, unfortunately.
I do believe it is a Switch 2 technically because Nintendo came out and said that it was a Switch 2. Now, because I didn't really dive into it, but when it came to Cyberpunk, I will firmly admit that from what I've seen, Cyberpunk does look amazing on the Switch too. I don't believe it would have ran anywhere near as well if it ever could have ran on the Switch
Right.
One. I don't think it would have looked as good, but I have Cyberpunk on Steam, so I have no want to really play that game.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna, whether or not it can play those third-party games like that, well, it obviously can, but whether or not it can, to me, it doesn't really matter in that sense because, I'm not speaking from like a reviewer of the system that's going to look at everything. I'm speaking from a consumer point of why should I buy the console when your first-party game doesn't really feel next-gen to me, and it feels more like what a Switch Pro would actually feel like.
I'll be honest with you, man. When I think of things that are important to me when it comes to new hardware, power is actually a little bit low on the totem pole for me. I don't think I don't really care that much about power. Do I like when games look beautiful and pretty? Absolutely. But I also don't really get excited when a company's chasing power like hardcore to be like, oh, this has to be 15 times more powerful than the previous generation and all these different flops and crazy things. And here's the reason, man. Game development is getting more expensive. The time between games is getting longer and longer and longer. And, I love Sony consoles. I've been a Sony fan since the PS1. I gotta say, I'm very disappointed with the PlayStation 5 gen. I love the PS4. PlayStation 4 is actually one of my favorite consoles of all time. I put it in my top 5, top 4 maybe even. I love the PS4 and the PS2.
Mine's PS2.
This gen, there's such a drought of first-party titles. I think it's important to have AA games and some of the smaller stuff, and I think just chasing this power thing, it's like if a game doesn't sell a certain amount of copies, it's a failure, and the studio shuts down, everyone loses their job, games get canceled, development cycles are 7, 8, 9 years. I don't know. I just don't think power's that important. I think it's important to a degree, but I think when I look back personally, and I think what makes a great console generation, it's never the graphics for me. It's always the library. When I think about why I love the Switch 1, when I think about why I love the PS4, the PS2, the Super Nintendo, that was my that was the console that I really turned me into a gamer, was the Super Nintendo. It's the library. It's the amazing games. It's not the visuals. Visuals are a bonus to me. They're a bonus. Switch 2 has big shoes to fill. I think the Switch 1 was a great console. It wasn't the most powerful, but we got multiple Zeldas. We got a fantastic 3D Mario. We got tons of great RPGs and tons of games. A great Luigi's Mansion. I think there was something there for everyone. The only thing we didn't get on Switch 1 is AAA third-party support. Games like your Grand Theft Autos and your Mass Effects and like those big games, Day and Date, or all the big Assassin's Creeds, like the third-party stuff. If Switch 2 can manage to get that, if Switch 2 can manage to capture those games, I think it's possible that I could like this more than the Switch 1 easily. Do I think it's going to sell as much as the Switch 1? Most likely not. But
neither do I.
I mean, I think it could break 100 million. I think that'll be tough, but I think it could. We'll have to wait and see. It's all about the games. So I know some people power's really important or the most important thing. Lots of times the conversation is it's not as powerful, or like PC games run games way more power and they could do 8K. Like, that's fine and dandy. At the end of the day, how good are the games? How much fun are you having, and how's that abundance? And I think that's something that PS5 right now is lacking. I used to not like Xbox stuff at all. I'm disappointed in the price increases with Microsoft because they can barely sell consoles to begin with. Not that it's like great to raise your prices, but if any company shouldn't be doing it, they have a handheld on the horizon. They probably have their next mainline console on the horizon. Just take the loss and focus on Game Pass. I'll give Microsoft this. I think Game Pass is one of the most amazing deals out there and one of the most consumer-friendly deals out there. Game Pass is phenomenal. I have an Xbox. I rarely touch it, but my kids have so much fun, and I don't have to dish out like even for me, like trying third-party games, not knowing if I'm gonna like them, and not having to spend $70 just to see if I like or don't like a game, it's fantastic. So I think Game Pass is phenomenal, and I fully support it. Don't necessarily support them doing price increases across the board. I think it's only a matter of time before Sony does it. Maybe they hold the line, maybe they won't. Who knows? But I think it's only a matter of time. We'll have to wait and see what happens there, but. Ultimately, I think it's the games that define a generation, not the power.
All right. I do want to speak on that one. I actually do agree with you that the games do define the generation. If I had to pick my top 3 favorite consoles of all time, it would be, okay, I'm going to go in the top 5. It would probably be the PS2, the PS1, the PSP, the Game Boy Advance, and the Super Nintendo. Those are probably like my favorite ones of all time, and they had amazing games, for all of them. So I will agree. And like I don't always focus on power all the time because I don't have a huge gaming, PC setup. If I care that much about it, like I do most importantly think that it needs to be, there does need to be some power. It's just that for me, if I'm going to buy a new console, especially at the price of what the Switch 2 is at, I do expect, more power. And, when I looked at the Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct, I actually do see that. But I'm not going to go off of what a Direct shows because we've been fooled. I'm not going to say it was Nintendo, but we've been fooled by many third-party, trailers of games where they ran terrible. And the game could look as amazing as it wants to, but if it's not fun to play or the story is just absolutely terrible, then it's not going to matter how amazing the game looks.
Sure.
But
yeah.
And
I think we. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's okay. I was going to sit there and say I think that's it for me on that one. I don't remember anything else to say.
Let's move on to Mario Kart. So it sounds like we both agree games define the console. I think we both agree that the not using the Hall effect sticks is it sucks and it's unfortunate, and Nintendo should have upgraded that. I don't think either of us understand why. I guess they were trying to cut costs, but are they really if they have to ship and repair and pay for manpower and time is money? So I don't get the logic on that one at all. Where we disagree, I think, is on the visual side. I think that you don't really see the big next-gen visual side. I do. I feel it's the biggest visual jump we've seen since the GameCube. I didn't really see much of a visual jump between the Cube to the Wii, the Wii to the Wii U, the Wii U to the Switch. So it seems like we agreed on a handful of stuff, but let's move on now to Mario Kart. Because I think this is one where and we've talked about it a little bit. I think this is one that we're going to probably agree more than maybe you would have thought, or maybe as much as you maybe would have thought. You believe Mario Kart World shouldn't have been $80, correct?
Oh yes, no. Let me rephrase this. No game should be $80. No standard base game.
For sure. I will tell you this, man. I absolutely love Mario Kart World. It is the most fun I've had at a Mario Kart launch day, playing with my buddy. My buddy came over on launch day. We played like 5 hours of Mario Kart. I had so much fun. That being said, there's nothing about Mario Kart World that tells me, oh, this is why it's $80, or this is why it needs to cost $80. This is why it's worth $80. Not one moment in my game made me feel that way. Did I love it and have a blast? Absolutely. Did I make a connection to when Nintendo said, just wait till you play it, then you'll understand? I didn't make that connection. I don't know who did. If there's something specific, I'm waiting to hear it. But I generally love the game, and I agree with you. I listen, man. I think it sucks that game prices are going up. I was not upset about $70 games for Switch 2, and the reason why was because I was 100% expecting games to jump up to $70 when Switch 2 came out. That was the standard across next gen. I was fully expecting it. $80, I was worried that Sony and Microsoft would make the jump to 80 next gen. I didn't think Nintendo would be that company. They're typically known for being like the easier barrier of entry. You know, it's a little bit, you know, they usually shoot for more affordable. So,
Yeah.
you know, I was surprised. And there's nothing in there that, like I said, that's like, oh yeah, this is why it's $80. Do I think I'll get my money's worth? Absolutely. Do I think it should have cost $80? No. So,
Yeah.
I agree. I
Now-
agree that it shouldn't.
Oh, yeah. Now, I will admit, I had fun with the game too. Now, I only played it for 3 hours, but when it comes to a game like that, I don't think you really need to play it for dozens and hundreds of hours to really know if it's worth it or not. But yeah, I did have fun with it, but it's a game that I can't sit down and just play by myself. It's more of a game
Sure.
that I'm going to play with other people.
Sure.
And now, when it comes to the whole $70 thing, like, I'm not thrilled about $70 games. You know, I've had, you know, I don't remember when games went up to $70 because I had a Switch during that time. I was playing on the Switch.
Uh-huh.
So, at least I think that's when they went up, was during the Switch time. But I don't remember really when they went up to $70. So I was playing on the Switch where they were $60 for that whole thing.
Right.
You know, so I was expecting them to go to 70 also, but I don't really like the $70 games because I know that they can sell them at 60 and still make profit. But,
Right.
you know, I don't really throw that much of a fit about $70 games. Now, I am very strict. If I'm going to give a review on a game, I do have set criteria where a game has to meet it for me to recommend ever getting a $70 game.
Sure.
And unfortunately, now that Nintendo is bumping it up, I'm going to be a little more stricter with Nintendo than what I was previously when it came to their $60 games. And because I believe, you know, because I've had some people tell me like, oh, the price should never matter. You know, I'm a firm believer if you're going to, you know, review a $70 to a $50 game or to a $15 game, you have to include the price. You cannot judge like a $15 indie game compared to a AAA $70 game. I believe there needs to be different standards, you know, because if you try to use the same standard, no indie game will ever meet the level of a AAA game.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
so-
yeah.
But I've accepted the price of the $70.
For me, I know I'm getting my money's worth, and I know that's, you know, that's me. It's all subjective. I think objectively it's priced unfairly. Subjective whether or not it's going to be worth the money for you, I think is the best way to put it. You know, Knockout Tour is fantastic. To me, that's the star. The open world feels undercooked. Now, here's the thing. What would justify the $80 to me, and we didn't get this, so I'm kind of ruling this out. I know some people think Nintendo's going to be adding stuff for free. I'm not convinced until I hear it from the beast's mouth, you know. But
Oh, yeah, I agree.
If they announced that the game was $80, but they did a roadmap for the next 12 months of free content updates, new characters, new tracks, new modes coming, and it's like, oh, okay, it's $80, but they're going to be adding content for the next year. To me, that would have been way worth it. If we knew we were getting like a Donkey Kong Island or a Hyrule area, or they were going to pull new Nintendo characters into it, do kind of like the Smash thing, then that would have been like, oh yeah, I totally get it. They're charging more, but they're continuing to build content that they'll be adding for the next year. That would have been rad. I would have been all about that. I hope at the very least, due to the higher price tag, that when they do add content, because surely they will, I hope that they do what they did with Deluxe and add it to NSO if you're an NSO subscriber. Personally, I think that is a great value. So hopefully we get that. But we have to wait and see. I'll tell you the day that will truly break my heart as a Nintendo fan. It'll be the day that I boot up a Mario or a Zelda or even a Mario Kart or a Smash, And right at the main menu, just like a Ubisoft game or an EA game, there's a cash shop with in-game currency that you buy with US dollars and all that stuff and advertisements. That there is no way on earth that I will ever defend that. So I don't care. My favorite series of all time is The Legend of Zelda. I don't care if it's Zelda. I will be pissed if that stuff lands in my single player Zelda adventures. That'll truly hurt the soul, to say the least.
Oh yeah. Now, I do want to talk about one thing that you said. Now,
Yeah.
I have firmly accepted the whole $70, and yes, it is going to depend on the person if they do find it the value. Now, when it's all said and done, I will continue to fight against $80 games, regardless if people think that is worth it or not, because I think that we can push back and keep that from happening. But like I said the same thing when it came to the Outer Worlds 2. They sat there and said it's going to be at $80. You know, I didn't sit here and do as much as I did with Nintendo because I did not find a single fanboy that was defending the $80 for Outer Worlds 2.
Sure.
You know, because some people are like, oh, you're just a Nintendo hater because all you do is Nintendo content. No, I got other stuff too. It's just I
see you cover a lot of stuff. I think you're going to have a whole host. Listen, man, it's a new console generation. Hype level is going to be at an all-time high for core fans.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to see a lot more fanboyism out there. You're going to see it from myself as well. There's going to be times where I'm, in my little cheerleader costume.
And there's nothing wrong with being a fanboy. Yeah. You know, all a fanboy is something that you obsess over. So if you're a Nintendo fanboy, you obsess over Nintendo.
Yeah. Dude, we're all fanboys for something. Doesn't always have to be video games.
I'm a fanboy for video games.
Yeah, same here. You can't see from here, but I've got a Sony shelf and a Nintendo shelf. I love Sony stuff, man. I get like pumped. I get more angry with Sony probably in recent years than any other company.
Me too.
To be honest with you, just the PS5 generation, and I do feel like, and I'm sure Nintendo's suffering from this as well. I do feel like when a company has a killer previous generation, they tend to be a little bit more cocky the following generation. I think Sony crushed it with the PS4, and they got a little cocky, and they've disappointed with the PS5. And I think in some aspects, Nintendo got really cocky with the Switch, and in some aspects, they've disappointed. We're still at the Switch 2's birth. There's still time for this to have an epic story.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been hurdles along the way. Dude, keep doing your thing. Keep growing. Huge congratulations to you. Your channel's been growing super fast, man. You'll be at 2K before you know it. So really cool stuff there. Guys, I'll have Vigilante's channel linked in the description box below so you can check out his videos. If you're coming from his channel, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I hope it was, fun, entertaining in some parts, or just a fun listen. And with that, guys, Vigilante, anything you want to say before you go? Anywhere else people can find you, or a farewell message or anything like that?
Yes, I do want to do a farewell message. Now, I'm going to release probably a song. It'll be before this video that, most of it is AI. I firmly admit it. I cannot sing worth a crap, but I did write a good portion of the lyrics myself. And I did have AI polish it up and, fill in where it needed to. So there will be a song. So if you want to come and check that out, you guys can go right ahead if you're coming from his channel also.
Hell yeah. And guys, I've got some new content coming. I've got some collaborations coming up. I've got my very first early code for a game, which is really exciting. It's an indie game. So I'm not going to be doing a full review of it, but I will be doing my impressions like 10 hours into the game and stuff. So I'm excited to share that. Oh, yeah. Vigilante, thank you so much for coming on. I've never done a video like this before, so this was a learning experience for me. I hope you had a good time.
I did.
And I'm just glad we were able to talk some games and see eye to eye on some stuff. Thank you, guys. I will see you next time. This is Gamebird Classic signing out.